This tutorial details the creation of a curved handrail at the corner of a stairway. As we see here, we have two straight segments of a railing for a stairway, and we'd like to develop the sweeping curve that goes around this corner. Our end result will look something like this. So let's go through the stages and let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is take a look at these two straight segments, and I'd like to build a couple of construction lines. I'm going to start by giving the array command, and with our settings at endpoint and midpoint, I'm going to start array at the bottom center of this railing at the back edge, and let's zoom out and go to the front center like that. We're going to create another one from the end of this railing. So again, array command, and I'm going to start at the bottom center of that and zoom in here to about there. So what we'd like to do is create a smooth curve that blends from the bottom of this rail to the bottom of that rail. We're going to use the spline command and M for method, and make sure we're using the CV control vertex method. We're going to define our spline with control vertices by starting here at this point. Now I'll say let's do object snap nearest and pick a point along this line. Nearest, right about, come on, nearest, and there it is. And now I'm going to do nearest again and pick a point about there, and it's going to end right there. So what we have now is a nice smooth curve that continues tangency at the beginning of at the end of this rail and blends in nicely with the end of that rail. The way the CVs work, let's do a little spline here on the side. If I create a spline with a series of control vertices like this, and I look at this spline, we'll select it, we now see the control vertices. If I grab the second vertex, second one, if I grab the second one and move it around, you can see that it changes the slope of the curve at the beginning. Here it's horizontal, here it's vertical going downwards, here it's vertical going upwards, and the distance from the beginning of this spline gives me the relative radius of curvature of the curve at that point. We can also manipulate the next to the last CV by selecting it and moving it around to change the slope. So that's what I've done with the curve we just created. And what we'd like to do now is position a cross section in that area. So if I come back here and I'm going to just move this in here, let's say this closed polyline, which is the cross section of the railing, and I'm going to use the align command, ALIGN. You could use align 3D as well. It's a little bit different, but does the same thing. We're going to take this section. I'm going to take the bottom left-hand corner and bring it into this corner here. The bottom right-hand corner and bring it into this corner. And I'm going to take this point and put it on the plane here like that. So you can see that's positioned that at the very end. We're going to change from realistic to 2D wireframe. We can see that more clearly there. So what I'd like to do is sweep this around this curve, using this curve up to the end of this railing. We don't need these straight lines anymore, so we'll delete those. So let's give the sweep command. Sweep. And we take the object we want to sweep. And we now say we'd like to select the path, which is this curve, and this is the result. Quite a twist to it. It's too much of a twist. So what we do is undo that, a couple of undos, and we'll try sweep again. And we'll select the object we want to sweep. And this time I'll say T for twist. And we'll take a guess of, let's say, 30 degrees. And we'll grab the spline. And it's not quite misaligned as much, so maybe we should do a bigger angle. So let's go Control Z, undo, sweep again, And we're going to select the cross section, T for twist, and let's try 50 and see what happens. And we grab this line. Well, it's little bit better, a little more trial and error. We might get it right on. So that's one way to do this, but let's try another and let's just see what this looks like. And so it's quite a mismatch. All right, let's go back to our 2D wireframe and go back to this. So what we're going to do is a different method. We're going to create a bunch of cross sections along that spline and then use the loft command. So I'm going to start off with array path. We'll select the cross section and we'll select the path and we'll say the number of items I is what I want to do first is say M for method, and I want to use divide because I want to specify the number of cross sections along the length of the spline. So now I can do I for items, 5, and we want to make the alignment, we want it to align to the path. The answer to that is yes. And we can now exit. And we have our sections. Let's see how that looks. Looks pretty good. Except you can see here that the last section is not properly aligned. So we will use the align command again. Select this last section, take the bottom left-hand corner of the section and put it there. Take the bottom right-hand corner of the section and put it there. And take this corner and put it here. So now that's perfectly aligned, and we can come in and zoom in, and we will give the loft command and select the sections one at a time in sequence to build up our final surface. Let's see what that looks like. Oop, I forgot to hit enter. Let me do that again. Loft 1, loft 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And don't forget to hit enter to accept it. All right, now we can look at the surface. We've got a blend there. So if we want to look at this, that looks pretty good. However, because we used a series of sections, we can do some manipulation. We might not like how this curve at the beginning sweeps off to the right. So I just want to show here, if we go undo a couple times, back to the sections, we can always do something like this, UCS, and I'm going to select OB for object and select this second section. We now have the XY plane parallel or coplanar with this section, and the Z-axis is perpendicular to that. I'm going to draw a line, just a temporary line like this. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to use the regular Alt 2D rotate command, and I'm going to turn off my object snap, grab the section, say for my base point I want the midpoint of the bottom here, and now I can rotate this around and change its orientation. I can tweak it a little bit. So here's where we started, and I want it to come back a little bit. I can manipulate that. And we can go and manipulate the rotation of any of these particular cross sections and use loft again to create our final shape. Don't forget to hit enter. And let's take a look at that. So we can see the result of doing that is, yeah, maybe I went a little bit too far, but you can see this bow here. I rotated that section, which forced the section out there. So you can really manipulate this until you get the shape you want. And that's pretty much what I wanted to show. Hope this helps. Thank you.